Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a character walk cycle. I'm using WeVideo for this project, but you can use any type of video editor, the same rules will apply. Well, a character walk cycle is made up of 4 distinct poses. You have the contact pose, you have the down pose or the recoil pose, you have the passing pose, and lastly you have the up or high pose. In contact pose number 1, you have the front leg is behind the back leg. In contact pose number 2, you have the front leg is in front of the back leg. Every pose will follow that same pattern. I created a new edit in WeVideo and I already imported my content for this project. I'm going to have a background that's going to move while the character remains walking in place. So I have a couple backgrounds to choose from, and then I have my 4 sets of poses. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our background move. I'm going to go ahead and drag my background image onto the timeline, and I'm going to extend it to about 20 seconds. To create the background movement, we have to open up the clip editor. I'm going to scale up the background just a little bit so that way I can position it and move it across the screen without seeing the edge of the picture. Let's head on over to the animation tab. So this is the starting position. I'm going to have the start right here in the bottom corner. And I'm just going to have the background move in the horizontal direction till it reaches the end. That's right about there. So we have an end point and a start point. We don't want the background to move up and down. We simply want the background to move left to right. So keep the Y position constant in both the starting and ending positions. Okay, that's going to work just fine for me. We're going to do a couple things. We're going to create a guide layer first, and you'll see how that works. I'm going to create a new track, new video track, and I'm going to call this guide. We're going to use one of these poses as a guide to position the remaining poses in the same place. So you're going to create a guide layer to use as a guide to have all your poses be positioned in the same place. We want our character to remain in the same place while the background moves. I have my guide layer here. Now, I don't want my character to be this big, so I'm going to go into the clip editor, hit E, and I'm just going to scale down this set of characters. I'm also going to move the character down right there. Now, I don't need 2 characters, so I'm going to be using the crop tool to crop off the right character here. This is character pose number 2. For the first 4 poses, we're going to use the left side. So I'm going to horizontally crop off the right side and hit save. Now I have my guide layer in place. I'm going to lower the opacity, that way I can see through the character and place my remaining poses right on top of that character. We're going to open up the opacity options, and I'm just going to drag these opacity markers down to about 30% on the beginning and the end. And this is going to act as a little placeholder for the remaining poses. I'm going to make sure that this is the same duration as my background. Now you notice that you have a transparent, semi-transparent character here. The first pose we're going to start with is the contact pose. So I'm going to drag this contact pose onto my video track that's underneath the guide layer. Looks like we got a little bit of work to do. I'm going to scale this down so that it matches up with my guide. That looks pretty good. I'm going to crop off the right side for the first 4 poses. Hit save. Now, one more thing we have to do is we have to set the duration of each pose. I'm going to set this to about 0.2 seconds. Right about there. You might have to zoom in a little bit more. So we want this pose, each pose, to remain for 0.2 seconds. The next pose after the contact pose is the down pose. I'm going to drag the down pose onto my timeline. I'm going to resize it in the clip editor. You want the down pose to dip down just a little bit underneath the contact pose. I'm going to crop off the right side and hit save. Now I'm going to change the duration of this image to 0.2 seconds. So we have our contact pose, our down pose. The next pose is the passing pose. Let's go ahead and add that to our timeline, and let's scale it down and position it on top of the guide. Looks good. Let's crop off the right side. And let's change the duration to 0.2 seconds. And the last pose is going to be the up pose. Go ahead and drag that to your timeline. Let's scale it down. And with the up pose, we want it to come up a little bit. So we're just going to scale this character up just a little bit, so that way his head comes up just a touch. Let's crop off the right side. Hit save. Let's change the duration to 0.2 seconds. I'm going to hide the visibility of the guide layer just to give you an idea of how the animation is looking so far. So let's go ahead and hide that guide layer. So we have the first 4 poses in place. The remaining 4 poses are going to follow the same sequence. We're going to use the right side of each image instead of the left. Our first 4 poses are complete. We're going to turn the guide layer back on and finish up. The remaining 4 poses are going to use the right side of the image. Let's turn off the guide layer and test it out. Okay, it looks pretty good for one complete cycle. I've completed one walk cycle. Now I'm going to show you how to copy and paste that walk cycle and create a looping animation. What we're going to do is we're going to select all of our 8 frames. We're going to hold down the Shift key and the Alt key, or the Option key if you're on the Mac, and we're going to click and drag out another copy of those 8 frames. And I can simply repeat that process over and over. That's Shift and Alt on the keyboard. Okay, let's test it out. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.